Let's check in on Fox News. They spend hour after hour, after day, after month and year, and you get the point, pushing lately pretty explicit pro-Trump propaganda lately, for some time, I should say. And it's interesting how much work and the billions of dollars of a company infrastructure they put into running interference for MAGA. But how, I guess for plausible deniability, they'll occasionally let a figure like Jessica Tarlov just quickly and brilliantly go, hey, everything you've been talking about for the last 24 hours plus is nonsense. Move on. And just crushes this cake, layer after layer of a cake that they've built, or that they've baked, I should say, of lies that supported Trump. Why they allow this, given their other behavior, I don't know. Again, I think it's to protect them legally, maybe. But I want to check in on what Jessica Tarlov has been up to, because she's been doing great work bringing truth to Fox News. Of course, she's the one liberal on Fox News, the 5, and occasionally appears on different shows. So let's start with this clip, and then we'll move on to others.
And Jessica, this...
By the way, sorry, before we're playing this, I am trying to remember to remind you to click that subscribe button. Just until we get to 1 million subscribers, then I won't bother you quite as much about it. But please do if you haven't already.
And Jessica, this everything about January 6th, or everything about all the legal conundrums that Trump finds himself in, hasn't dented his support with Republicans. And so a lot of the media on the left were saying, oh, this is it. This is going to be the one. But do you think it's going to be the thing that turns Republicans against voting for him?
No, I don't think so. And it has never polled as such. There are people who are persuaded by the argument that there is one party that cares about protecting democracy, and there's another party that will undermine democracy if it suits them. And J.D. Vance made that clear on the debate stage when he wouldn't answer Tim Walz's question.
Who's for voter ID?
That's, well,
I'm just curious. Because
right,
that
not, there is no
voting integrity.
So this is a distraction from talking about.
No, you said threat to democracy.
Well, so there is no voter fraud. That's the thing.
Oh, how do you know?
Well, because there are cases of it. It gets investigated, and when there is, it's Republicans. Okay.
Quickly, before going further on this, just to clarify, people will, for the sake of simplicity, say there's no voter fraud. There obviously is fraud, but it's not meaningful. It's not relevant given how tiny those numbers are. So insignificant, not outcome determinative, not even concerning numbers. So prosecute those cases, hold people accountable, prevent it, all that. But the point is, essentially, there's no fraud is the point she's making. Because sometimes people will go, no, but look, there's this one example. Yes, there are some individual examples, as has happened in every election ever. Second key point, Gutfeld said, who's for voter ID? Everyone's for identifying voters. Everyone. He's talking about very specific, restrictive photo ID laws that we've reviewed the impact of before, but don't actually do what MAGA thinks they do on fraud.
The narrative is that Democrats are obsessed with January 6th. But the reality is that Donald Trump is the one who's obsessed with 2020. Even today, he was on stage in Michigan saying, I won, and I won by an even bigger margin than 2016. Maybe he should be quiet about it, but he can't stop himself, which puts it into the national discourse. There is new information in this filing, 165 pages. There has to be something new. We know for sure now that Donald Trump knew he lost, even though Jesse says he didn't know. And we know because he told his kids on Marine One, even it doesn't matter if you won or lost, you have to fight like hell. We knew he didn't care if Mike Pence lived or died. Now we know that he said, so what? And that there were 71 threats against Mike Pence. So bad that Mark Short had to go to the...
That's why you need cross-examination. No. It's not true unless it's tested.
Mark Short went to the Secret Service to say that he was scared for his life. You have anecdotes.
But all those things are not... No, I knew all that.
Yeah.
You knew that he said, so what? And you knew that you knew about
within the spirit of everything that has been written and said about this
before. Did you know
before.
about Ronna McDaniel going to the election official in Michigan who said that's effing nuts? What he's asking us to do?
It is in keeping with everything else I know about it and everything else that she said. Jesse.
Before going further, you can see how irritated those hosts are. And they should be, because they're being confronted with what single-handedly proves their dishonest role in American politics in an epic epically disastrous way. They spend every day running interference for, defending the guy who apparently they're saying we know all that stuff about how he tried to restrict and prevent our democratic process from proceeding lawfully, but they don't care. Wasn't it interesting? Jeanine Pirro going, "That's why you need cross-examination." And who has been effective at delaying this trial so that the cross-examination won't happen until after the election? Trump's team. It's such an interesting phenomenon you see every time these discussions come up. There's this passion behind points from MAGA Fox hosts that would lead one to believe, oh, that must be a strong point. But no, you're making a great point, Jeanine Pirro. We need cross-examination in, let's say, a trial. And are these criminal? Oh, they're criminal acts. So maybe a criminal trial in a court of law in front of a jury of Trump's peers. Oh, wait, that's what Jack Smith wanted before the election, but Trump got it delayed. Oh, you're saying that Jack Smith shouldn't be proceeding with this because we're too close to an election, but you're saying before the election, people need to see these ideas subjected to cross-examination, but then you're working on behalf of the guy and defending the argument of the guy who actually is responsible for delaying the trial. So that's a ridiculous counterpoint. Then for Dana Perino to go, I've already known all this stuff. Who cares? Why is this being brought up? Maybe because it proves in one document why Donald Trump should never be close to the White House ever again. Maybe because someone sitting being told his vice president had to be rushed away to a secure location because members of this guy's movement, the person that we're talking about, Donald Trump, wanted to hang him, and Trump's response is, quote unquote, so what? And you want him to be back in the White House. A guy who assembled fraudulent electors that if his plan had gone forward and Pence didn't say no to it, if local officials didn't say no to it, if his attorney general didn't say no to this plan, would have thrown us into a constitutional crisis like we've never seen before that would have prevented Biden from coming to office, even though he won an election. Maybe that's why we're talking about it. Dana Perino. Maybe Trump continuing to lie about the election up until yesterday, and we know he's going to do it again today, is why this keeps getting brought up. And maybe your lies about gas stoves, for example, aren't more important than our democracy. Maybe your lies about inflation, for example, we talked about gas prices, the impact on gas prices of a deal that Trump made with Russia and Saudi Arabia during the pandemic to slash in a way we've never seen before production of oil that then caused a spike into the Biden-Harris administration that Trump then blames them for. Maybe those lies that you tell aren't more important than our democracy. Here's more from Jessica Tarlov.
But I don't know if anyone else saw this today, what Politico was reporting. As usual with Trump, every accusation is a confession. They have two people who used to work for him in the White House told him that he wasn't going to release funds when the wildfires hit California because he didn't think that his supporters were there. So they had to show him voter data.
But that's Politico. They're a joke.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're a joke. They just did a whole article on body language of the debate saying Waltz's eyeballs gave you passion.
Okay, well, I want to...
Please stop.
Donald Trump had to be shown voter data that aren't...
Your network, Greg, your network has done stories about the sex appeal of Eminem characters. Glass house, buddy.
Orange County was solidly for Trump before he would release disaster relief funds. He even re-upped this in September earlier.
That's hearsay, Jessica.
No, it's not. It's reported in
a periodical that hates Trump and has lied about him for years. Let's go to Judge Jeanine Pirro.
It must be really weird to live in your world.
Jessica says.
Yeah, and before addressing this, just quickly, this as well.
Really, Marco Rubio didn't like something, so he said that it was fake. And the reality is, and I mentioned this yesterday on the 5, that every accusation is a confession from the Republicans. You know, the only president who actually did take funds that were supposed to go to disaster relief and move them to dealing with the border That was Donald Trump.
It was Defense
he
Department
took
money.
he took $155 million out
It was
of the FEMA
Defense Department
budget
money.
to
A
do
couple of
that. That
things.
should have gone to hurricane relief.
A couple of things.
Yep. And she brought the receipts afterwards, reporting for the Washington Post that cites Trump taking $271 million from DHS and $155 million from the disaster fund for his border initiatives, as he's accusing Biden-Harris wrongly of not being able to provide funds for the hurricane relief because they spent it all on undocumented immigrants, which I guess if you plug your brain into Fox News, that's really what I picture now. Like every time I say that, I get an image in my head of, let's be honest, a middle-aged white dude or an elderly white dude grabbing a cord that comes out of his TV and plugging it into his ear and then just wow. If you do that and Fox News just gets to deliver whatever they want into your brain, maybe these lies are compelling to you. But everyone else, if you keep up with politics, isn't it a little exhausting? You could have predicted this. They're going to say something about undocumented immigrants, no matter what the facts say relating to this hurricane. You could have predicted that they were going to lie about Biden-Harris's response, that from all we can tell, has been everything you'd expect from our federal government. While there's so much devastation, and that should be our focus, and there are delays and there are resource issues getting them where people need it, the response has been prompt and urgent. And they've twisted the words of both Biden, Harris, and Alejandro Mayorkas to say that there's only $750 or something going to disaster victims. Wrong. That's the initial amount people get, and then much more will be flowing into these communities. And then they said this fund from FEMA is out of money, based on a quote from Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, which FEMA is a part of the DHS, that actually proves the opposite. He was saying we have the money for Hurricane Helene, but we need more from Congress. From Congress. For future disasters. Not because we spent it all on undocumented immigrants, but because of the frequency of these disasters. But they cut out the part where he said we do have enough money now, but we need more for later. And who has the track record of more consistently blocking allocation of more funds for natural disaster response? The Republican Party. Pretty enraging if you give it some thought. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Support the show. Get the bonus show by clicking the join button below.